in terms of their ownership, they're probably more focused on related party transactions as opposed to associated party transactions. And the related party transactions, they were always going to have to focus on anyway, because of course, those rules have been in place since 2014. So I think it's less important for Forest to look at the wider associated party rules. Clearly, they have a view. If you look at the noises that have come out of Nottingham Forest consistently over the last couple of years, they have a view that there should be more relaxed rules around clubs like Nottingham Forest, particularly those that have got promotion. And it's also true that Nottingham Forest for this season will be right on the edge of a PSR sort of cusp of a breach. They have an £83 million limit because they have 2 Premier League seasons and 1 EFL season. So they're limited to losses of 83. I think they need to have had, by the end of June, quite a chunky player profit, probably in the order of 60, 65 million quid. We know that they have had quite a big profit from the sale of Brennan Johnson. So one of the benefits of losing the argument in respect of 22-23 is that the benefit of Brennan Johnson can be clearly felt in the current season. So they have the full benefit of his sale. The question is whether it's enough, because they also have to deal with some operating losses, aside from player trading. So the player trading has to compensate for not only the historic losses, but also the losses in the current season. So they needed to make quite a lot of money on player trading this season. They've made probably in the order of 50. I think they probably need a bit more. Whether they will try and sell somebody before the end of June, we will see. But I think for them, probably associated parties less of a pressing issue. They're probably more focused elsewhere. I think Liverpool will be in that category of clubs who will be some of the most vocal around strengthening every rule around related party and associated party transactions. They will be a key instigator because they don't have that as a source of revenue. They're not looking to bring in any of FSG's partners as sponsors, and therefore for them, they would like, frankly, I suspect they would like associated party transactions completely banned. We always have to remember that everybody around the table in those Premier League rules, that they're quite entitled to look out for themselves. There's nothing in itself wrong with those clubs looking out for their own interests, obviously assuming that the rules they're putting in place are lawful. I mean, that's the key point. If the rules aren't lawful, then clearly the rules need to be removed. But if the rules are lawful, then there's no problem with Liverpool, Arsenal, United, and anybody else fighting very hard for having rules that benefit themselves. Another club that has an issue for this season, despite the fact that they qualify for the Champions League, there's a good chance they'll have an issue for next season as well, because what's likely to happen is they're likely to have an uplift in wages from Champions League. So you would think a number of players would have a wage uplift within their contracts. It's likely that they'll want to invest in the squad. That's going to drive amortization costs in the year. So if you look at somebody like Gallagher that they're talking about, so if they buy Gallagher before, let's say they buy him on 30th of June and have his full amortization in for next year, and they buy him for £50 million, that increases their amortization by £10 million per season. Well, they don't have at the moment a huge amount of leeway within their P&L. And so Villa have got some issues. Of course, they will have the revenue coming out of the Champions League. But you have to remember, the gross revenue, even for a club like Newcastle last season, was something in the order of £35 million, according to their own accounts. You've got to offset the costs that are associated with that 35 million in terms of bonuses, in terms of increased wages, including generally increased costs associated with being in the Champions League. And by the time that you net it out, if you don't get through that first stage of the Champions League, it's likely not to have made a huge difference to your bottom line. So Villa have some big issues.